And good evening, everyone. I'm Jonathan McNamara with JMU Sound Off, coming to you from Richmond, Virginia. Today, I have my shirt on. I'm back at home. An amazing day in Harrisonburg yesterday as the Dukes defeated Old Dominion 63-27 in a homecoming game for the ages. Still remain undefeated in Sun Belt play. And one of those games that I believe we're going to be talking about for years to come. Not only what happened inside the stadium, but what happened around the stadium. Just an incredible day. So happy homecoming. We're going to get to everything that made yesterday special on this episode. Also going to look a little bit into the future and what comes next for the Dukes. We're also going to do some kids picks. We're going to have a lot of fun today. So thank you for spending part of your Sunday with us. But as always, we want to start by recognizing our sponsors first. Skyline Financial Partners. Got a chance to see Tim yesterday. Remember that you can empower your family for lasting financial success by learning more at skylinefinancialpartners.com. Champions Drive Bourbon. We got a chance to spend some time with the Montpelier Collective yesterday, as well as with President Jim. Presented him with a 3-bottle set of Champions Drive just to welcome him to Harrisonburg and his first ever homecoming. So it was a pretty special opportunity to do that. Check out our social accounts for that interaction. Want to recognize our friends from Where's Woody. We were in the tailgate lots yesterday with Mike Norwood. Met a ton of fans who came by to get some of his new gear. If you weren't able to get to Mike yesterday, remember that you could get 25% off your entire order at where'swoody.com by entering promo code SOUNDOFF25, and that is good for 48 hours after every broadcast. Once again, promo code SOUNDOFF25 at where'swoody.com. Want to recognize Purple Nation. Got a chance to see Carol yesterday. She is gearing up for the holiday season. Remember, they now have stores in Midlothian, the west end of Richmond, Northern Virginia, and the coast. So if you live in Virginia, there's likely a store within a couple hours of you. Remember, yourpurplenation.com if you want to shop online. Always good to get ready for the holiday season. Want to recognize Shoker Enterprises. Joe Shoker, he impacts personal, civic, and institutional productivity for success through his philanthropic work in the community. So we're just grateful for everything that Joe Shoker does for JMU. Want to recognize the Dead Meat Society. We had a chance to do our tailgater of the day. Mike Gokenhauer was the winner yesterday. So always fun to get a chance to see what he's bringing to the tailgate experience. He had a bartender yesterday, some amazing food, and it was just an awesome time all around. So shout out to Jake Coons for joining us with that. Remember that you can join the movement for grilling enthusiasts at deadmeatsociety.com. Also want to recognize Outdoor Kitchen Creations. Got a chance to see some of their gear yesterday at Barry Zonemont's tailgate. Some of the best barbecue, by the way, I've ever had. But you can learn how you can take your tailgating game, your backyard kitchen game to the next level at backyardtrends.com. And finally, we want to recognize Virginia Farm Winery, Valley Road Vineyards. They're an amazing new partner here of JMU Sound Off. It's a little bit of a tongue twister to get it out, though. But next time you're on I-64 between Harrisonburg and Richmond, stop by. Remember that you can get 50% off your wine flight when you tell them you heard about it on JMU Sound Off. And remember to also consider them as a destination for your weddings, rehearsal dinners, birthday parties, or holiday gatherings. And you can learn more at valleyroadwines.com. But before we bring on the other members of our Sound Off team, we thought we'd kick off today's episode by hearing a little bit from QB1. Had some powerful words after yesterday's game. Again, a 63-point scoring outburst for JMU's offense yesterday in the win over ODU.
From here, the message has to be, kill. We can't do anything else. We can't listen to the outside noise about how good of a game we had, this or that, because everybody's going to give us their best shot, and we control our destiny. So we just have to continue to work, which I know we'll do.
A performance for the ages for quarterback Alonzo Bournette, 17 of 25, 295 yards through the air, 2 touchdowns, added 17 carries for 153 yards on the ground and 4 touchdowns. That's our QB1. And with that, we're going to bring on the other members of our Sound Off team. Afton Sadamont's here. We got Taylor and the crew. We've got Michael Evangelista. Chandler is running the show as our producer today. I can't think of a better way to start the show than what's happening in the bottom right box. The Atkins family put on a performance for the ages yesterday. They understood the message. Tarps off fourth. Taylor, I'm just going to turn it over to you and the boys.
Tarps off fourth.
Amazing.
Tarps off fourth quarter. Harrison and James were at the game yesterday. Harrison, this is Harrison's first time on the show. So for those of you that are only listening to this, I highly suggest you go watch on YouTube. Currently, John has his shirt off. My boys have their shirt off. We're doing tarps off for sound off. So hey, Harrison, tell me, did you have fun yesterday?
Yes.
And can you give me a go Dukes?
Go Dukes.
And James, I think you had a question about you had an opinion about the Old Dominion mascot. Can you give me that opinion?
The hold on. The lion looks like the Mouse King from the Nutcracker.
The lion looks like the Rat King from the Nutcracker. And that's all James kept asking me yesterday. He loves mascots, but he wanted to know why the Old Dominion mascot looked like the Rat King. So, boys, can you give me some shirts off one more time and to go Dukes?
Go Dukes!
All right. Thank you guys for being on the show.
Hey,
all
I
right.
just want to say, not only were they epic in the game yesterday, they're pretty good kids picks, by the way.
They were. We highlighted the fact that both James and his buddy Owen both predicted 50 and 60-point performances by the offense. And I think a lot of JMU fans thought that was an adorable pick, but it turned out to be Kidstradamus, a very true pick.
Our resident kid, Afton Sadamon, can learn a thing or two from those kids. Forward thinking, really analyzing the data when they came up with those opinions. So Afton didn't have a bad week last week. We know there was some.
It was overhated week, especially by Taylor. I hear he was
will say,
not giving me any credit for the Indiana pick. Come on,
I think Afton picked like 20 games the last 2 weeks, and he hit on one. I mean,
I will say though, what you don't see as fans of JMU Sound Off is what happens before our show, where we do a little debrief, what we're going to talk about today. Afton found out what a message board is today, with a great line when he goes to the Duke's domain. Oh, this is like a website. Never felt older than when Afton was like, that's just amazing stuff. That's going to be a video.
Afton's going to go down a dark hole now and click on all the links.
Down the road is we're going to film Afton exploring more things about the internet that once was. Maybe we'll get him on AOL Instant Messenger or something like that. We'll have him create a screen name or something. But guys, where do we start? I know we've been doing our offense-defense shuffle, but before we get to anything that happened on the field, I just want each of you to kind of give your experience. Because for me, I didn't want to go to bed last night. I said this to you before we started the chat, because I kind of wanted to just marinate more in what yesterday was, which for me, I said our theme for today's show is kind of peak JMU. I thought the entire experience, from Mother Nature, first of all, delivering a beautiful canvas for the day, to a spectacular tailgate where we got a chance to see all of Harrisonburg in its finest light, and so many people who came back yesterday for the first time in a while might not have even been able to get into the game, but they wanted to be in Harrisonburg, to be a part of the community and everything that was taking place there, to again, just some incredible culinary offerings for the tailgate yesterday. Just a spectacular afternoon. So whoever wants to take it first, it's about as perfect of a day that I can remember as a JMU fan. And to everyone I've heard from since yesterday has had their own version of why JMU's tailgate and homecoming yesterday was peak JMU. I'll start with you, Michael, because you've got a big smile on your face. So what was your Saturday like, even before you made your way into Bridgeport Stadium? I know there's some Korean barbecue, I think, was on your menu.
I was going to say, we tore it up. It was Korean barbecue week at our tailgate up in Convo. We had like a combination of like 4 or 5 different tailgates over the past few weeks. So it was phenomenal. I know we want to talk about the good. I will start off with the bad, just as I just want to get it out of the way. But if you're a JMU offensive player, preferably a wide receiver, and you're the recipient of either a kickoff or a reception, you are not allowed to leap or jump over anybody. We are now 2 games in a row where we fumbled after hurdling someone. So you heard it here first. No more hurdling. It's done. It's over. Now on to the good stuff. I thought at a high level, on and off the field, this was a game, a weekend of responses. Responses from the fan base. We talk about the electric atmosphere. You could hear the impact of the roar of Bridgeport on that ODU offense from first quarter to fourth quarter. Shout out to Barstool with the tarps off fourth quarter. The students, the fans, they were fantastic. And a response from the team, right? It was 28-27 at halftime. It was honestly a masterclass from both quarterbacks. They both, what's his name? Colton Joseph and AB3 started the game 12 for 13. And they were playing great. And then to only allow 10 yards and 1 first down for the rest of the game and hold yet the 7 straight opponent to under 300 yards of offense when ODU had 275 in the first half was bliss. It was perfect.
So not just 275 in the first half. I went back and looked. They were at 277, I believe, with 6:34 left in the second half. That final drive they had, they lost 2 yards. I turned around to my buddy Drew Richard, who could not make it on the podcast today.
I'm a witness to this too. I did hear you say this.
Thank you. I looked at him. I said, hey, the streak is still intact. And he goes, 275 in the first half. You think the streak's going to be intact? I said, just watch. And I will say that last drive, where, both teams are just kind of running out the clock. I said, there will not be a more dejected JMU fan walking out of Bridgeforth Stadium if on this final drive, they get those 15 yards needed to break 300. So yeah, once again, shout out to the defense. But I think, to Michael's point with how the game started, so many of those things that we come to depend on, we've always depended on the defense will always be there. So the offense just needs to do just enough to get by. Well, that first half yesterday, the defense wasn't there to depend on, and the offense had to do what they needed to do to keep themselves in the game. Now, the defense more than made up for itself in the second half. I think they only had 1 yard of total offense right before that final drive. I think they ended up with 10 yards of total offense in the second half. But just a dominating performance from our offense, a dominating performance from our defense, a dominating performance from the fan base that stuck around. And like Michael said, shout out to the student section. They made the difference in that game. And I've seen multiple people talk about how that was one of the best game day atmospheres that they've had. I've heard since the App State game in 2023 when we had game day, since the 2016 Sam Houston State game. But that crowd was into the game, and we truly brought the 12th man to that game.
Afton, speaking of dominating performances, your dad had a dominant performance in the tailgate lot before. I was talking about smoking 6 pork butts for 14 hours. I mean, the dedication, the commitment is second to none. Talk about your experience before the game, and your kind of fast thoughts on and everything that happened inside Bridgeforth.
Yeah, even if you take away the game, the experience was incredible. Tailgating scene was electric. The barbecue, top tier barbecue.
Peach barbecue, by the way. That sauce.
Yeah, peach barbecue was so good. But then you get into the game. First play of the game, it's going downhill. Me and Michael looked at each other and we said, if you told me to script the worst possible start, we don't think we would even come up with that. It was just awful. But then Alonzo bounces right back, 60-yard touchdown. And then our offense just started humming. Taylor touchdown. The atmosphere was incredible. And one big thing that I noticed is, like my dad said, he was like, this bodes well for us being up 28-27 in a shootout at halftime, because we've seen time and time again that our defense is that good. So no matter what, they won't keep up. And that's exactly what happened. They ran out of gas. Our defense stepped it up to another level. Offense could not be stopped. The tarps off was incredible. That was awesome. Theme around college football this Saturday was a tarps off. We had great atmosphere because of it. Shout out Jamie Barstool, like Michael said, for that. And the students stayed all 4 quarters, so we got what we wanted. And even more than that, they stayed for the alma mater at the end, which is awesome. And the team, you could tell that really meant something to them. And Alonzo Barnett, I said it a couple weeks back, you just have to wait for the bounce back game. And this was more than a bounce back game. 17 of 25, 295 yards, 2 touchdowns, and a 96.3 quarterback rating. That is incredible. And on top of that, like John said, he also had 153 yards on the ground, 4 rushing touchdowns. That's all I've got to say.
Well, I want to say one last thing just about the atmosphere, because I think, sometimes we take this stuff for granted. There was a lot that happened yesterday inside Bridgeforth Stadium that was very intentional. I thought this was one of JMU marketing's best days, whether it was the video on the screen where they are poking some fun out of Coach Chesney's account getting hacked. That was brilliant. I know that how they pulled that together such short notice to get that on, the fact that most of the fan base understood what it meant to, just shows how dialed in our fan base was. I thought that was spectacular. I thought the Scotty McGee field presentation letting him have the moment, how much you could see he was truly moved by the fact that people were still chanting his name after all these years. And I know they turned that around on short notice when they found out he was going to be in Harrisonburg. That was electric. We brought back Touchdown Squirrel yesterday. We had the kid who's been so meaningful to this program, who's been battling some medical issues on the field doing the Go Dukes chant. Just a spectacular example of what being very intentional and deliberate in your willingness and desire to create a great home field atmosphere. That's what it looks like. So Melissa Wyatt, Matt Rohn, the whole team from athletics marketing, the ticket staff, bravo, you had yourself a performance. Before now to get to the offense, though, I want to say a quote that I took from Ricky Ronnie's post-game press conference, where he said, "I don't think I have more respect for any imposing player in the country than I do for that kid." And that was in reference to Alonzo Barnett. A game that we were all waiting to see from him. We all knew it was possible. Let's be fair and candid. There are a number of people on the internet who said not only was it not possible, there are some people on the internet who said there was a 0% chance we would win this game with Alonzo Barnett as quarterback. I have somebody believe that he took this stuff personal, and you could see it from his post-game comments, what it meant for him and what he sees now as the possibility going forward for this program. Whoever wants to take it, that's a performance for the ages and a statement from now who is undeniably QB1 for this team, a kid who continues to show unbelievable and unprecedented resilience. It's just a masterclass.
I mean, I'll be the first to say one of the things I did is I tried to track down some of those posts on Twitter that have happened over the last few months. Either I'm bad at searching or a few of them got deleted because there's some very prominent fan accounts that were backtracking big time on what they were not only what they were saying about Alonzo, but what they were saying about our offense. And I think we forget too often. I went back to the Kurt Signetti season where we went 11-2. You know, the ball bounces a couple of ways in a few of those games. We're 7-5. We're 6-6. Signetti is probably still at JMU. He's not at Indiana. He's not making $12 million a year. I mean, that's how close the game of football comes to what we consider a successful season and a bad season. And yes, you know, the Georgia State game was a bad performance all around, not just by Alonzo, but by the entire offense. But again, I continue to reiterate, not only has Alonzo won the starting job for two different head coaches, but in this particular situation, the guy won the starting job, not having a spring practice, not having a full fall preseason, and did it for a guy who also on your team is a guy who started for 3 years under that head coach. Alonzo is such the guy that I want to get behind, you know, in this era of players transferring and not a lot of loyalty. You know, Alonzo bleeds purple. This guy loves JMU. He is JMU through and through. And not only did his performance on the field just, I mean, get me excited, but just his words in the press conference. You saw this kid was a leader. I mentioned it last week. If you watched his postgame in the Louisiana postgame press conference, just the determination he had in his eyes. And I think we already highlighted some of the statistics, but, you know, Kevin Van Pelt, I told him I'd give him a shout out. So he was the guy last week when he said, all right, what's Alonzo going to do? And I said 250 plus and 3 touchdowns. Last week, he did 290 in the air and 3 touchdowns. So this week he said, Taylor, you spoke it into existence. Give me what you got. And I said 350, 6 touchdowns. Now, while he did not get 350 in the air, he did get almost 450 yards of total offense. He did get that 6 touchdowns. So Alonzo, coaching staff, if you're listening, tell me what you need me to speak into existence for the rest of the season. I'll do it. But my hat goes off to Alonzo. Great game. I'm glad that he's the leader of this team. I'm glad he's QB1.
Michael, can I ask you to touch on one thing in general? Because I thought you've done such a good job this season of kind of breaking down not only what you've been seeing from a schematic perspective with this offense, but what you hope to see yesterday from this offense. And I thought, like, based on the roadmap you had kind of laid out for what you wanted to see from Alonzo Barnett and JMU, I thought it was the full kind of encapsulation of what your kind of belief that this offense could be really in action yesterday. And it was a beautiful sight to see, not only just for what happened yesterday, but again, if this offense can continue to grow based on the framework and the scheme that they're rolling out with these players now feeling more comfortable in their execution, really the sky is the limit for where this team can go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. Alonzo Barnett, the last couple of press conferences, talked about a balloon about to pop when he mentioned the offense. And I thought this was a culmination of the chemistry and the confidence between Barnett and the receivers really come to fruition. And you saw so many what I call trust throws out there where he had the confidence the wide receiver is going to be there. You look at that big throw to Landon Ellis at the corner of the end zone, that throw to DeGeneiro where he had to beat the safety coming in. He eventually got called for targeting. What a throw. And just look at Landon Ellis, right? Another 6 catches for 97 yards, breakout game for DeGeneiro. You look at his 65-yard touchdown. That was an RPO play. And Barnett has a chance, if that safety stayed back, to hand the ball off, but he bit forward, and he just threw a strike on that post route. I think it was either a post or a quick slant. And just what a beautiful ball. And that just shows the timing. And you heard it again in the press conference around, Barnett didn't have 6 or 9 months to throw these guys. He had weeks. And now it's coming to fruition, and guys are stepping up. Landon Ellis, Jalen Sanchez, DeGeneiro. I love that we broke a tendency out of the diamond formation. We threw it over the top to Josh Pfeiffer on that 3rd and 1. I was waiting for that, and it was beautiful, right? So you're seeing all this coming to fruition. And honestly, we haven't talked about it yet. Barnett did his best impersonation of Vad Lee. Someone could check me. I don't know if any quarterback since that SMU game has had 448 total yards. And I'm going to shout out to our friends, Vad and Delvin on the To The Out podcast. I know Vad's going to be happy with this one, but what a performance. And I think, who knows if Kennedy and Co are listening to us right now today, but to hear Barnett talk about, we wanted to keep the game simple and attack the perimeter. And that's what we did. That's what they did. The read plays, getting the ball out in space, getting to the ball to our athletes, right? And letting them run. And shout out to someone we haven't talked to in a while. Coach Chris Smith on the offensive line has just done a phenomenal job. That 3-3-5 front is very difficult. They blitz from multiple angles. And for that offensive line just to impose their will, we talk a lot about Barnett. We ran for 311 yards total yesterday. I mean, that's just phenomenal in general.
Yeah, and Afton, I want to come to you because something you did a really good job in the lead up to the season was doing these player profiles. And one of the players that you looked at was Nick DeGeneiro, and you looked at Landon Ellis and some of these receivers that were coming in. I thought one of the most impactful things for me after the game was listening to Nick DeGeneiro's interview with Dave Rigger, where he was very candid in talking about his personal frustration as a player who he's very confident. He said, I'm one of the best players in the country when I get going. I just haven't felt like I've done enough to show that Alonzo can trust in me and this coaching staff can trust in me, but I never lost faith in my ability to do it and the belief that I could be an integral contributor to this team. And he talked about the very candid conversations he had with Alonzo and how they have been very deliberate and intentional in their meetings over the last couple of weeks of working to get on the same page. And he was just genuinely moved by the fact that he had his moment. And if you look at after he scores that first touchdown, he drops to his knees and kind of does finally a thank you. I can't say what's going through his mind that moment, but you could tell how meaningful it was to him. It was pretty special to see him have his day, especially as a player who I know many of us were very excited about in the lead up to the season, but also after he made that incredible catch against Louisville. It's just one more weapon this offense has.
Yeah, DeGeneiro, he checks all the boxes: size, athleticism, speed. And before yesterday, he really only had one big game, which was the Louisville game, biggest game of the year. And we were like, this kid's great, one-hand catch. And then all of a sudden, we didn't hear his name for a little bit. And I think his biggest thing was just patience. He was patient. He let everything get in a groove. He never got too mad, I guess is the word I'm looking for about it. But before I get into the wide receivers and Alonzo and the running game, I have to give a little bit of props to ODU's rush defense to start the game. This Alonzo 153 yards, 4 touchdowns on the ground. This wouldn't have happened if ODU didn't send so much pressure at Wayne Knight. Because to start the game, they had Wayne Knight bottled up every single play. He could go nowhere. So then Alonzo, with his knee now healthy, was like, if he can't run it, I'll just run it. 60-yard touchdown. And then all of a sudden, ODU is in a pick your poison situation. And Wayne Knight ends with, 74 yards, I think? Yeah, 74 yards and 1 touchdown. So I have to give a little bit of props to ODU for at least being the first team to actually stop a run game to start in the first quarter. But Alonzo then just took it in his own hands. It's incredible to see him back. You saw on the goal line when they had an edge rush and he just planted his foot in the ground, spun the other way. That's when you know he's just fully healthy. He's fully confident in everything he can do. He's fully confident in his knee, which is big. But then you get into the receivers. They talked about the meetings they had last week. Landon Ellis had a big game. DeGennaro now has a big game. Ellis has another big game yesterday. He had 96 yards. DeGennaro in the first quarter was unstoppable. He only had 3 catches, but he had 106 yards. He had 2 touchdowns. He had the big play with targeting that Michael was saying, and then couldn't get in the end zone on that play. But then 3 plays later on a slant route, caught the touchdown, which was also an RPO. So 2 of DeGennaro's touchdowns were on RPOs, taking a play out of ODU's playbook, because a lot of their plays were RPOs. A lot of the time I'd look to the person next to me and I'd be like, I don't even know who has the ball. Is it Colton Joseph or do they hand it off? Because they're a tricky team. But I think halftime adjustments by the defense and adjustments not at halftime, but every single drive by Dean Kennedy and this offense were really impressive, because you could tell they were mixing it up. Michael touched on that one formation where we had an 18-yard pass to Josh Pfeiffer. We've run it every single play of that formation, and that kind of got me thinking, this is a way different offense than last year. It's way less one-dimensional, even though in the Georgia State game, the pistol offense didn't work. I like that we still tried it, and we're doing stuff like that we didn't do last year, just like the formation we did yesterday, and it mixes things up. And then Sluka comes into the game at the end, has a big 40-yard run, big touchdown pass, and now all of a sudden, Texas State will have to do a little bit of film on Matthew Sluka, because then he did have an 18-yard touchdown pass to Smoke Collins. Incredible catch, by the way. Sports Center top
literally
10.
Hear the announcer go like, "Good God!" Like that's a catch for the ages. I know it's been played on Sports Center and stuff. And it's good to see Mikey Scott, who hasn't had a chance to get in rhythm and as much as I'm sure he'd like as a player who's got a ton of confidence and a ton of talent. That's got to do wonders for his confidence going forward. I want to say yesterday though, with the receiver room and DeGennaro, who I think does represent some of the swagger of this team. He's a player that kind of bleeds his emotions. It's impossible to not see what he's feeling, but he kind of exemplifies what Bob Chesney and this team has been really looking for in terms of their recruiting when they're going to the portal. They're not going necessarily just for these P4 retreads, guys who are coming down. They went out and they got a lot of guys who have played football, meaningful snaps at programs that have winning traditions. And I think that is why in many instances, these players were able to push through some of these the frustration because they have a belief and an awareness of what they're capable of and the talent that they have. And I think that's part of why I think this whole unit is showing resilience. I know Taylor's got some numbers he wants to throw out on offense, but I do want to give out one more shout out to Wayne Knight before we get into kind of some of the stats from yesterday. But Wayne Knight's run in the third quarter when he got down to the goal line and he dropped his shoulder into a defender and kind of just pushed forward, to me just shows again the confidence that this team has in itself. But again, that swagger, I'm going to keep using it. They want to impose their will. They want to dominate the other team and let them know that, like, we're breaking your will. And that there were a number of moments where you saw kind of ODU tap out. But after that play, there was no question in anybody's mind where this game was going, because it was just this, we're better than you. And I can't think of any example better than Knight just dropping that shoulder. It's just, that was a thing of beauty to see. And again, shout out to Dean Kennedy in this offense. It was just beautiful. But Taylor, your numbers, I know you want to put forward.
Wayne Knight punishes you. I mean, he punishes you for trying to tackle him. And there's, I was going to call it the play you mentioned, but also if you go to the 13:50 mark of the second quarter, when they do that little swing pass out to the flats where Wayne Knight got it, and there were 2 D-backs that came up. I mean, he popped them both, bounced right off them, got another couple yards as he ran towards the middle. But in a game where Wayne Knight was not the star player like he normally is, still averaged over 6 yards a carry. It took a lot of attention off of the other guys that did end up having great games. So Wayne Knight still gets a helmet sticker from me for his performance yesterday. But I think we all saw Katie Harper mention this is the first 4 rushing touchdown performance since 1999 when Curtis Keaton did it against UConn with 5 rushing touchdowns. Our offense has slowly crept up to the 35th ranked offense in the nation right now. So, we've been talking about this top 10 defense. You have a top 35 offense to go along with that. And that's 7 games into the season. No more of these outliers kind of pulling those stats one direction or the other. But I think, total offense 35th. Passing has creeped up. I mean, we're 104 in passing, but remember we've creeped up 30 spots just in the last 2 weeks alone. Continue to be 8th in rushing. And I just want to give a shout out to Alonzo again for the performance he did. I do believe that Vad Lee's game against SMU was 250 plus, both rushing and passing. But I'm not going to cast a shadow. 450 yards of offense, 6 touchdowns. And I did think I saw one post yesterday where it said, if Alonzo can keep this up, I guess he might be QB1. I'm like, goodness gracious, there are some people that you're just never going to please in this world. But the team that we saw yesterday is the team that we've known, that we've had all year. And I would not want to have to be game planning for this offense going forward.
Yeah, to keep on the Way Knight glaze here. I mean, when you watch him run, sometimes the O-line misses a block, right? Or the defense is there. He's just such a good competitor. And also him and Jordan Fuller, same thing. Shout out to Jordan Fuller as well. Like they have really proven to be the top 1 to 2, combo set in the Sun Belt right now, because they just compete, man, and they just get tough yards. They break tackles, and that's the entire offense. And you saw that with the offense yesterday. They played with such confidence, and they knew they were better than the defenders in front of them. So I think that was awesome to see. And last point here, I haven't believe we haven't talked about it yet. Offense had 0 turnovers, and they held the ball 41 minutes versus ODU's 18. I mean, we talked about it last week, John, about like the time of possession, and like talk about a response to go from 3 turnovers last week to 0, and then holding the ball for so long. And talk about the wealth of riches. After you talked about new things to game plan for, we had that new formation out with Joby Mallory, kind of in a fullback position, and really having him there in short yardage situations. And we still have Petaway, right? Petaway coming off an injury. He had that great first down. He ran a Texas route, and we got a first down off of it and caught a pass. Like, he's finding his way back in the rotation. So in the words of it, it's like you got to find, and we have so many weapons for certain situations, for certain types of games. And this is a game-by-game staff, right? They look at every game in a very certain way. And who knows? We'll probably see a Petaway breakout game soon enough when we're going to need that speed. We're going to need that athleticism and space when they're going to gobble up things inside.
Yeah, you talked about Joey Mallory and George Petaway. It's great to see them back on the field. I'm with you. Seeing a Petaway breakout game would be huge. You got to feel it from the injury early in the season. But he's working his way back in the rotation. He had a solid game yesterday. Hopefully he can continue to get more and more reps. But Taylor was talking about the numbers earlier, some stats. ODU was the 17th ranked pass defense. Alonzo passed all over them. And we need to give the Dukes a warm welcome back into the polls. I'm pretty sure we have now 6 votes in the AP poll. Yes, 6. We're now 32nd in the country. We're the 4th ranked group of 5 team. So welcome the Dukes back into the conversation for everything. We've been in the conversation for the conference championship. We just got to keep taking it game by game. But it's nice to be seeing our name back in the polls, back in the AP poll, number 32 in the country. So when you talk about top 10 defense, top 35 offense, it's also nice to have the number 32 team in the country.
There you go. A little breaking news on the episode today, because that's what we do now on Sundays. We break news. Billy Napier fired at Florida. So another job.
Wow.
Open in the college football landscape.
Surprise.
James Franklin's phone number is probably pretty popular.
I will say,
right now.
Whoever Florida's going to play then next week, they're going to dominate, because all of a sudden, me and Afton were talking about this. UAB beat Memphis after firing Dilfer. Virginia Tech beat NC State. UCLA won. So any team that is struggling, I mean, you want to win, just fire your coach. You'll get a win next week.
Now that Billy Napier's fired, though, is USF's win as impressive as we thought? No, sir. No, sir. These college football playoff rankings in 2 weeks are going to be interesting, because USF's not going to be that high because of this.
Producer Chandler does note in the notes, though, that Penn State did not find a win, though.
But let's go back to that real quick. I don't want to glaze over that. We were talking week 2. There were some JMU fan accounts, and I mean the big fan accounts that everyone follows, that were saying, look, guys, we just need to focus on a conference championship, because ball game. There is no college football playoff. And I know people say, oh, well, Taylor, you can't be looking ahead. Of course I can look ahead. I'm a fan. I don't need to have the mental tenacity to not overlook the next team I'm playing. And just the amount of JMU fans that were already dogging this team and jumping off the bandwagon so early. There is so much football left to be played. And I don't have to go back through all the other seasons of all the other rankings and everything of how it looked preseason. I mean, UNLV. Remember, actually, UNLV last year, and then the year before that, that Air Force team that we played in our bowl game, that Air Force team was going to be the one that was going to go to NY6 and everything. So, folks, there's a lot of football to be played. I'm sure we'll talk about some of the games around the country that happened yesterday, but I'm just, there were so many people counting this team out 2 weeks in. And to Afton's point, that USF win over Florida is just not looking as great as it did.
Well, we talked about it last week. At some point, you got to get behind this program, right? At some point, this team finds a way to win. We finally had that breakout game against an Old Dominion team that was top 10 in the country in offense, top in the defense, whatever it was, all that smoke about them blowing out Virginia Tech, who's going to be the best in Virginia. And we sent a message. That's what it was. It was a message. It was 63 points against, arguably, the nation's darling there for a little bit.
Yeah. Well,
I know I dog on our fans sometimes, but it's like, what was the statistic that we started 5-1 for the 4th year in a row in FBS, mind you?
Crazy.
And it's like, the biggest complaints in the JMU fan base are like, oh, but our wins they don't look as good. And I'm like, good grief, folks. I mean,
what more do you want?
What more do you want?
Win by 1. That's what I say it every week. Win by 1. 62-5 at home. Pretty spectacular. Actually, let's take advantage of that before we go to defense, because then we're talking about what happened around college football. Kind of another crazy day in the Sun Belt yesterday. App State loses on the road at Coastal Carolina, which I don't think any of us predicted a couple of weeks ago, to your point, Taylor, about you just don't know what's going to happen. Marshall now looks like a team that game is going to be, probably a little bit more of a war than we expected maybe 3 or 4 weeks ago. Texas State loses again. Anybody who wants to take it, just your thoughts on the rest of the Sun Belt, because it's interesting where we're headed in terms of potential opponents down the road, but also what's happening in the West as we look towards a Sun Belt championship potential.
I'll start. Yeah, I don't know what to think of the Sun Belt. I think all of college football is drunk, and the Sun Belt's no exception to that rule. Coastal Carolina looked abysmal early on. Not only that 40-point loss to Old Dominion, but I think they beat Charleston Southern 13-0. I mean, I had written Coastal Carolina off. Yeah. I had thought App State was the real deal. The West continues to be kind of a head scratcher, although Southern Miss looks to kind of be pulling away from there. But I mean, I just want to talk about some of the numbers that both relate to the Sun Belt and just the greater JMU football program as a whole. Everyone has seen that graphic going around about the 62-5 at home over the last 10 years. I mean, we're in the same company of Alabama and Ohio State are the only 2 FBS programs behind us. We're 1 spot ahead of Georgia. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, those are FCS wins. We were an FCS program. So, I mean, the ratio of all the same, the impressiveness of that number, it just doesn't happen in college football. I think another stat that they highlighted on ESPN last night was the 33-10 record that we currently have this far into our transition out of FCS. It's currently leading the way of any team that has transitioned the last 14 seasons. And then on top of that, you talked about, once again, we're in the polls. I think this is one of the first years, or maybe the second year, where we were in the polls, got out, and have earned our way kind of back in. So I think it's really impressive that the media and the national attention that's coming on JMU. I still want to say this early into the season, because there's a lot of football to be played. Another great statistic, the Royal Rivalry. I'm waiting for it to be a rivalry because we have a 4-game winning streak in football. We have an 8-game winning streak in men's basketball. We have a 12-game winning streak in women's basketball. We are dominating. And then obviously a post that I made earlier on Twitter today, Virginia Tech has a 0-game winning streak against teams in Virginia. Old Dominion, 0. Liberty, 0. UVA, 1. They beat William & Mary this year. 22 games against teams from Virginia. Someone also already pointed out that those 22 games, a lot of them were FCS schools. Well, 6 of them weren't. 6 of them were Old Dominion, Liberty, and UVA. And if Virginia Tech had played us this year, we'd be adding another one to that point total. So a lot of great things to see from this program and this team and where we are. And as we look ahead to our future games in the Sun Belt, I'm sure you guys have some thoughts on that too. But, the Marshall game is going to be a dogfight. The App State game is always a dogfight. Washington State, their record might be the most misleading in the country right now because they lost to UVA on a safety. They almost knocked off Ole Miss. So that game is going to be really exciting, especially with the Marvel promotion. And then that game at Coastal Carolina at the end of the year. I mean, the way they're playing, we're not going to have an easy game going forward. But dare I say, don't bet against the Dukes on any game left on their schedule.
Hey, can I give you one more number too that I can't believe we haven't talked about yet? 2 for 2. In seasons where we're eligible to participate in a bowl, we're not bowl eligible as well.
You know what's funny about that? I think when we were sitting down there in the 109 section at the end of the game, when they put up that 6-1 bowl eligible graphic, I think I looked to y'all and I was like, that wasn't even on my radar. I mean, I was so focused.
It didn't even hit me. It didn't even hit me at all. It wasn't even close.
No, but it's such it is an interesting point though, because how many teams across the country define their success by becoming bowl eligible? A lot.
Right. And how many JMU fans want to jump off a cliff when we only win 8 games?
Yeah. And to us yesterday, it was kind of just like, oh, that's an afterthought. Like, we're bowl eligible.
That ODU team is probably going to win 6 games, right? They'll probably be in a bowl. They'll probably be in a bowl.
Definitely.
Find a way to win.
Oh, a lot of teams on our Georgia Southern got another win. Liberty got another win. I mean, the teams on our schedule, they're collecting some wins. I mean, I think you're going to have the majority of the teams on our schedule will be bowl eligible by the end of the year.
Which makes it even that much more impressive what we were able to do yesterday. And now we're going to transition to the defense. And I am a person who I like to think I lead by transparency. I said to Taylor in the first half of the game yesterday, I was like, look, at no point in this season have I doubted us. And I said, but yesterday with Colton Joseph firing on all levels, I remember exactly what I said to Taylor. I was like, it's not even I'm doubting our defense. I was like, I've just never seen a quarterback play to this level of perfection the way Colton Joseph is performing in this game. And sometimes you just got to tip your cap and say you got beat by a really good player. And then everything changed. And I thought adjustments is a term you can't say enough. We met those adjustments, not just at halftime, but towards the end of the first half. We started to really understand what we needed to do to be successful on defense. And as far as I'm concerned, and I'll turn the floor over to anybody who wants to take it, that's one of the most impressive defensive performances in a half of football that I've ever personally seen. I didn't even know it was possible to hold the team to 10 yards of offense. I think I saw a stat where they only had a yard in the third quarter, which, okay, I'm ridiculous. And just nothing made me happier than Taylor's joy inside the stadium when he saw that the 300 dream was alive. Every time they would get a sack and they were going backwards, it was like,
I think we were at one point, it was like we were at -10 and they had that one one play. And it was like, oh,
Taylor's face was a kid who sees the Christmas tree for the first time. It was,
beautiful. If you were sitting with me, you would have thought we were down 1 point and I was sweating bullets because I was like, we've got to keep it. And you know, we had President Jim on pregame who was kind of hyping up the no team has put over 300 yards on us. So I said, you know, we got to keep that alive. And that is, again, such an impressive stat and one for this defense to continue to tout. You said 1 yard of offense in the third quarter. They only had 1 yard of offense late into the fourth quarter once Old Dominion had put in their back
and one first.
Really quick, I don't want to gloss over this because you mentioned it, so we bring it up now. Shout out to President Jim, big football guy, by the way. Talk to him after the interview. He is just dialed into the numbers and the stats. Like, this is not so like a staffer was there who provided them with that number. He also 2 weeks in a row, last week he said we would drill them. And before the game, he knew that video was going to be put out. He said we're gonna kill him. So President Jim, big football guy. We got to get him on our kids pick segment because he's
the President Jim Matt Roan combination is deadly. I mean, the JMU athletic program is going to be a force to be reckoned with, and I'm so glad that those two are at the head of the helm.
Well, they want to push the envelope. I think that's the theme, right? Yeah. They both push the envelope. They have high goals, high expectations. I think that's what matters most.
But also, they're communicating in real time. Like, because I don't think this is actually kind of a perfect segue to the defensive conversation because at halftime, Matt Roans with Tim Miller recording a video to students being like, hey, we loved what you did in the first half. We need you to stay. I mean, it's not like they waited for the comms team, people like me who can script them and film them with perfect audio. It was perfectly imperfect. Like, Tim Miller didn't have a mic when he did that segment, but he said, you know what? I know a lot of students follow me on Instagram and might be in the stands. Hey, am I going to reach thousands of them? Maybe not. But if I reach 100 of them or 200 of them who see my message and go, I'm going to stay for the fourth quarter, I don't think any of us can say that didn't have an impact. And it just shows they're nimble, they're creative. We talked about earlier their willingness to put on videos. That again, there were 1,000 reasons not to do that video. And I think maybe in the past the JMU administration talks themselves out of that type of opportunity. Is it going to offend somebody? Is it going to shine light on this? This administration, and I'm not just talking at the top of it, from all the way down now, it's amazing when you have a get to yes mentality. You see what's possible, and I thought that was yesterday. And we had a get-to-yes mentality with the defense yesterday. Michael Chandler's talked about it a lot, the adjustments that are made. What did you see on defense? You had a kind of a bird's eye view from the sidelines of what was taking place. Maybe start with the bad and then went well.
Yeah, I mean, shout out to Coach Hitchler. Like, what an awesome game plan. And before I go into it, I remember it was the 4th and 1 in the fourth quarter, and you would have thought it was like the Super Bowl for us, because I knew if we stopped them on that 4th and 1, we would have kept them under 300 yards. That was phenomenal, and the players wanted it too. They knew what was on the table.
That play was reviewed, right?
Yeah, that was crazy. Like he didn't even go past the line of scrimmage.
I don't know if there's ever been a 4th and 1 review that was as dialed into as much as we were in that moment of a game with the score the way it was.
Yeah, we all knew the implication. It was crazy. But I mean, shout out. I mean, the ODO offense is a very hard offense. The veer and go offense, super hard to defend. And we talked about it all week. It is an offense predicated on window dressing, the quarterback making quick reads. And that's what he did. I mean, Colton Joseph, like I said at the start of the episode, masterclass of quarterback play in that offensive scheme. Started the game 12 for 13. Could not miss. And one thing you notice, and I challenge everyone to watch the game, what ODU did in the first half to identify our coverage is they would motion the tight end around constantly. And you would see some of our guys follow them. And he would identify that we were in man coverage. And you see a lot of the big plays is we were blitzing a ton, but it was 0-man coverage on the back end. So it's a man-on-man situation where they had guys beating us. That wide receiver that had the 98-yard touchdown and had a touchdown on the slant on Culp as well played out of his mind. But in the second half, what you saw differently is when they started motioning players, no one was now following. So we mixed up the coverages in the second half. And you saw it. First play of the second half, he thought he had one-on-one. He thought he had a man down the field like he did in the first half. And what happened? You had JT running back. You had Eaglin over the top, interception. And now when you're Colton Joseph and you're, once again, predicated on making quick reads where out of every formation, you have 5 or 6 plays from that formation at any given period of time. And now you're second guessing things and you're trying to figure out what should I do, hand the ball off or not. It was awesome. And we played a lot more coverage in the second half, if you haven't noticed, because we had confidence in what? Our defensive line to take care of business. And what they did in the second half, those running back runs, those quarterback runs to the outside were completely eliminated. You didn't see that anymore. And that's shout out to that defensive line. It all starts up front and their ability to communicate. And what I love what Coach Hitchler said in the postgame is the defense was able to get on their feet. Because I think you'll notice, right, when you played other teams, we like to move around. We like to disguise our blitz packages. We like to mess around with the formation, defensive ends, dropping back, whatever. In the second half, we said, we're going to play big boy ball, and you have to stop us. And we just played our defense. And it was phenomenal to watch, to see. And also, we got to give a shout out to Coach Grotsky, because we only had, 2 or 3 players out this game. And you could tell it was going to be which team was going to have enough available players, who's going to be deeper in their roster. And we were rotating guys on the defensive line, and we were getting to Colton Joseph. And last point here, we talked about it all week. How do you beat these types of teams? You got to hit the quarterback, and you got to be physical all across the field, from the wide receivers to the tight ends to the running backs. You have to be physical. And we played big boy football, and we out-muscled them in the second half. Colton Joseph didn't know what was hitting him. And to see JT, former walk-on, safety, high school quarterback, to have that sack where he wrapped around on the outside and Colton Joseph to essentially seal the game, that was a sight to see, and well-deserved play from him. He had a phenomenal game.
Yeah, after the first half, defense didn't play great, but it honestly wasn't so bad. A lot of it was just like one small mistake, a lot of cover zero mistakes. But me and Taylor saw each other after the first half, and we're a second half team. We're gonna be fine. Neither of us were nervous at all. We know we're a second half team. We've proven it now, like 3 weeks in the season, 3 different games. We've proven that we're better in the second half, the opposite of last year. And it's exactly what happened. The defense was phenomenal. Shout out Justin Eaglin. He's been a very loyal player to the Dukes defense. Not a lot of playing time the past couple of years. 2 picks though yesterday. Huge. You had Tyler Brown, 8 tackles. He had a little bit of an injury that people didn't really notice in the third, but he came back, 8 tackles. Jacob Thomas had a sack off a safety blitz. He had 7 tackles. And Patrick Rea flipping the field for the 3rd straight game. Even though Old Dominion did score a 99-yard touchdown on this.
And he caused the fumble. Remember,
He caused the fumble with his left-footed punt.
Which let's not glut. That was a major moment in this football game. Was that muff pump?
Did you know that was the backup ODU quarterback?
Yes, yeah, I saw that.
He was trying to kick all year, and they put him out there in that situation.
And he had apparently been doing a very good job of that in practice, but oof. But no, I do think yesterday what we did see, another example, I'm glad you brought up Patrick Rea, though, of resilience. He struggled early in the season.
He did.
Kind of publicly called out in a couple of situations by Coach Chesney. And again, yeah, you're starting to see now he's a major weapon for this offense when we're trying to flip for this special teams group, and that ties in. Not a perfect special teams performance yesterday. Obviously, anytime you fumble on your opening kickoff for a touchdown, it's nuanced, but I thought there were some really good things from that unit as well. And it's a group that continues to contribute. They did miss a extra point yesterday. I thought we were also pretty close to blocking some kicks. So good things from the special teams unit. Taylor, I know you have a few more points you want to make, though.
Yeah, I mean, let's just again to remember that no offense has put up more than 3 touchdowns on our defense this year. You know, the 28 points in Louisville, there was the fumble in the end zone. Obviously, yesterday the opening kickoff. So 3 touchdowns has been the max, and those only 2 games where they've scored 3 touchdowns. An Old Dominion offense that was near top 10, and a Louisville offense that just knocked off the number 2 team in the country. So again, our defense can. Afton had to get the Louisville comment in, but I respect the game. I respect the game. No, the statistics continue to be out of this world. You know, overall, the defense is ranked 4th in yards. The rush defense continues to clock in at 2nd in the country. Passing defense continues to rank in at 14th. Sacks, top 20th in the country in sacks. And one statistic that's not really specific to defense. We really cut down on penalties in this game. Only 5 penalties for 45 yards. That was about half of what we've been doing in most games this year. And there was that. I went back and watched yesterday. There was that egregious pass interference call where the ball landed about 5 to 10 yards out of bounds. The receiver was running out of bounds the entire play. I mean, the ref even had his hat off acknowledging that. I still don't know how that was called pass interference. So just wanted to give a shout out to the discipline to lessen the penalties in that game, and hope to continue to see that for the rest of the year.
And Taylor, I would like to say one of those penalties was a sideline infraction, which was not on me. By the
warning.
way,
I think we got a warning.
It was not on me. I just want to make it clear. It was not my. It was not my.
What play was, because the warning, it was, I remember being like, that was well justified. I'll take that one.
I think it was the interception by Justice.
That's what it was. Yep, that's what it was. Well,
good work.
I'll take a warning there.
Good work, not running out of the field.
I stayed where I was. I stayed
And
right.
you know, this is kind of a real side tangent, but I know John said he didn't even know this tradition existed. I probably was more aware of it because of my Texas for 8 years. But, you know, Texas Tech has this tortilla tradition where they throw them in the stands. I just want to give credit to not only the JMU students, but the JMU fan base for keeping the streamer tradition alive for over 20 years. We have not abused that tradition to the point where, I mean, because all it's going to take is one time where, whether it's a big game or the emotions get caught up and the streamers just start going. And for 21 years, we've kept those streamers in the stands, off the fields. We've never been penalized for it. And so I just think the JMU fan base deserves a big round of applause for keeping that tradition alive. And I just think that I love that our fans respect it enough to never take it to a level where the league or the conference has to get involved.
You were talking about those traditions about streamers when we score touchdowns. One thing I noticed is a lot of these teams have turnover traditions. We need to get ourselves going some of that. I know me and Taylor are hyped about it. Basketball season's in 2 weeks. So what if we did a little bit of what Ole Miss does, you know, get a mini basketball hoop, get them start dunking after a pick. I know Michael would love that. He's obsessed with basketball.
I'm just always worried, is someone gonna, like, I don't know, tear an ACL trying to do that, or like pulls a hammy trying to get up there after a turnover. That's what I always think in the back of my head.
Awesome stuff. Well, one thing about traditions we didn't mention on this episode, but you mentioned it in your fast thoughts after yesterday's game. There's only one team, Virginia, that throws streamers. And I can't say for sure, but for me,
I saw it. There were blue and white streamers coming from.
Oh, I saw, but I mean, I can't say that was what turned this game, but it certainly brought my rage quote up a little bit when I saw them streaming out of the ups. I was like, oh, no, you didn't. So I had
the game, John. Remember you and I were talking about the missed field goal or the missed extra point by ODU as potentially the turning point of the game there. Shout out to the crowd. I mean, the guy totally shanked it, and there was the student section was loud, the band was loud. I mean, you could tell like the power of Bridgeforth was like in full effect on Saturday.
Yeah, awesome to see. We are obviously going to focus a lot on our next opponent on next Sunday's episode, because remember, our next game is a Tuesday episode, so we're not doing a full-fledged Texas State preview this week. But just wanted to give everybody a chance to do any final thoughts they had just on wrapping up the weekend or what's to come with this team. Because again, we are putting ourselves now in a position where if you look at the data, we are the odds-on favorite to represent the East now in the Sun Belt Championship. But there's, again, I think to quote our old coach Signe, you got to manage success as well. I think that's going to be the task ahead of Coach Chesney. And you heard Alonzo in his post-game remarks being like, now we have to continue to keep our eye on the prize. We have to continue to manage our expectations, manage our focus, and continue to push forward to knowing what is at stake. He's going to use a mentality of kind of kill. But where are you guys' heads at as we now go into an extended break before our next game against Texas State?
Yeah, there were some games yesterday that were kind of meaningful to JMU, not just yesterday, but earlier in the week. So we already hit on the Afton. We'll get excited about this. The Louisville win over number 2 Miami. I think that will continue,
Taylor.
that will continue to play well for JMU. Strength of schedules they go in. UAB over Memphis. You know that's a big play, and kind of as those top 5 G5 teams are shuffling around. Boise over UNLV. One of those teams had to lose. UNLV was kind of ahead, so it was kind of good for UNLV to do so. And I don't know. I just saw it this morning. The way Tulane beat Army. If you haven't seen that winning touchdown, I mean, the guy was double covered. It basically hits both defenders, pops up in the air, and just lands in the guy's arms. So Tulane has had some questionable games. I mean, they were close with East Carolina. They were close with Army. I don't want to call them a pretender, but I don't know if they're as high as they should be among these other teams.
I'll do it for you, Taylor. They're a pretender.
But my other two quick final thoughts. One, the country roads tradition that they're playing in the fourth quarter, playing country roads, reclaiming that for Western Virginia as it truly is. Take it back from the Mountaineers. It is Western Virginia. There is no Shenandoah River. There is no Blue Ridge in West Virginia. So I love that JMU is reclaiming that song for the Dukes. And also, I think someone, I don't know who it is. I'm sorry, I'm not giving a shout out to who posted this, but Tony Kornheiser on PTI earlier this week, when Signetti got his contract, and Tony Kornheiser was like, this guy was at Elon and James Madison, who no one's ever heard of. Well, someone needs to tell Tony to stop having ESPN come to our campus for the largest game day crowd that they have every year. Someone needs to tell Tony to stop ranking us in the top 25. And someone needs to tell Tony that I guarantee you that JMU is on a short list for some game days coming up for the rest of this year. So Tony Kornheiser, I got your ticket to Bridgeforth Stadium if you ever want to come down and take a look at who the Dukes really are.
Yeah, that was a rough, flippant moment for somebody I've always really liked, actually, but that was not his finest broadcast yesterday or this week when he mentioned that. That was rough. Afton, any final thoughts from you?
I would say it's a great atmosphere. Now that we've seen it from the students staying all 4 quarters, this might become the standard now. Stay all 4 quarters, not just for homecoming, for every game. There's only so many of them when you're at JMU. You only have 4 years, so make the most of it. Stay all 4 quarters. Be as rowdy as you were yesterday every game.
Take it from Afton. He hasn't even gotten there yet, and he understands that the time is precious. Michael.
Look at Afton, wise beyond his years. I love it. Similar to last week, right? We got to rally around this program. I look back at like the Georgia Southern game where we had guys come out like Iziagu and Sahir West had like really strong tackles for losses. And we talked about that game, building confidence for some of these players that haven't been in the spotlight. We needed this game. The Landon Ellis's, the DeGeneiros, the Pfeiffers, AB3 just having his game. That builds confidence. Confidence builds not arrogance, right? But it builds like there's more chemistry on the field. You can call certain plays now. You can make the throw when maybe it doesn't look like it's there. There's a lot to build from this past weekend. So as a fan base, let's get behind this program. Last year too, I think, next couple of weeks, we're going to go to Texas State. They run a very similar offense. They're going to have a very similar pace. And this defense has now had at least a taste of it, right? With ODU, which I think is a good warm up going on to this big matchup. So get behind this team. And last but not least, I love AB3's comments. The mentality is to kill, to go forward. I've missed that from this program is that killer instinct, that killer mindset, that put away mindset from this program. And we talked about in the fast thoughts afterwards, right? We talk about finishing games. We talk about finishing drives. That's how you just finish a program. And you kill their will and you put them to the floor, you stomp on their neck and you send them out of there. 42 unanswered points to finish the game. Unbelievable. Get behind the Dukes, get behind QB1. Let's go.
Yeah, and I just want to echo that. I think if the last few weeks have proved everything, is that the next time that disastrous moment in a game that you think is going to be this all-encompassing sign of doom or spells the worst of what's to come, we all got to collectively take a deep breath and say, hey, there may be something pretty great right around the corner. And that's what the last few weeks have shown me is you can't have much more of a disastrous start than we did in that game. I actually don't think you can have more of a disastrous start than we did. I don't even think it's possible. And then look what came after that. So let's be as resilient as this team has been and continue to get behind them. My last final shout out is to everyone in JMU Nation. You made the canvas yesterday for our national TV appearance that much more special. It was across the board, alumni, students, future alumni, future students, all across the board, a thing of beauty. We had a bunch of kids who have come up to us who have done some really good things about JMU Sound Off. We had our buddy Nathan who joins us in C-Lot before the games. We had some of the kids who joined us in the kids pick segments. We're in the tailgate lots. This is a fan base that is growing from the ground up. It continues to add new members each and every week. I'm sure there's somebody who saw the ESPN games yesterday who's now a part of the fan community that's going to grow for the future. So just a thing of beauty yesterday. And my final message is just thank you to everyone who helped yesterday be one of those days I know I'm going to remember for a very, very long time. And I know there's a couple of moments from yesterday that I'll be talking about for years to come. And that's because of everyone who helped to make that possible. So thank you. And with that, we're going to end with one other series of thank yous to our sponsors again, Skyline Financial Partners. Remember, you can learn more about how they can help you sustain your lasting financial success at skylinefinancialpartners.com. Champions Drive Bourbon. Find an ABC store near you at abc.virginia.gov. Our friends from Where's Woody, remember 25% off their entire site using promo code SOUNDOFF25 at where'swoody.com. Purple Nation now with stores in Midlothian, the West End of Richmond, Northern Virginia, and at the coast. Shoker Enterprises, the Dead Meat Society, where you can join the movement for grilling enthusiasts at deadmeatsociety.com. Outdoor Kitchen Creations, learn more at backyardtrends.com. And our friends from Valley Road Vineyards, remember them for your holiday gatherings, your birthday parties, your weddings, and stop by on next time you're on I-64 and tell them you heard about their vineyard on Sound Off. Get 50% off your wine flight. And with that, that's going to do it for another episode of JMU Sound Off. Enjoy the week. Enjoy everything that happened yesterday. It's okay to soak in it a little bit more before we move on to what happens next. And we will talk to you soon for another episode of JMU Sound Off next week with special guest, Athletic Director Matt Roan. Go Dukes.